This is stroke, counterstroke. You can guess the topic. It is, and I wanted to point out, these are, I did these over the weekend, but this little spot right here, I hope you can see it, that is actually where my stroke occurred. And when you look at an MRI of a brain that's had a stroke, you can see it. So mine kind of looked like that. Maybe not quite that big, but pretty close. Okay, now I'd like to ask for your participation with something. You know what your dominant foot is. Would you lift your dominant foot? Everybody just lift your dominant foot. Okay, now raise your dominant hand. All right. And now as a group, could you tell me, you can now lower your hand? I'm glad you win. You win today's prize. Now I'd like you as a group to tell me what month preceded this month. Okay, and what month comes after this month?
April.
Okay. Now would you just lean, oh, how about this? What is 500 divided by 2?
250.
You guys are getting better and better. And let's see. Lean to tell the person next to you where you went on your last vacation, or a person close to you.
That's North Carolina.
Okay. If you have had a stroke, you may not be able to do one or more of those things. You just couldn't do them. And so there are so many ways I would like to share my lived experience, and that was one way I thought perhaps just to imagine what it's like not to be able to write your hand. Write your name with your hand. Okay. Every 40 seconds, someone in the United States has a stroke. And that's almost 800,000 people having a stroke in the United States. They are one of the leading causes of disability in this country, but, and this is important, they are the leading preventable cause of disability. So, and the key word there is preventable. 10% of stroke survivors recover almost completely. This is where I'm headed. It's what I want to do, and that's what I'm working towards. 25% recover with minor impairments, but almost 50% of stroke survivors have moderate to severe impairments requiring special care, like a nursing home, long-term care, etc. That's half. That's a lot. That's a big percentage. And then 15% die shortly after suffering a stroke. And I am here to tell you that you don't want a stroke. You really don't want one. But you don't have to have one, and I think that's the important message. Stroke risk increases with age. Over 75% of strokes occur in people who are over 65 years old. By the way, I was not 65 when my stroke occurred, so I was in that 25%. And now the trend is for younger and younger people to have strokes in their 20s and 30s. And can anybody guess why?
Stress.
You got it. It's stress. Men are more likely than women to have strokes. And check out this map. We are in the area that has the highest incidence of stroke in the country. Okay, and we just talked about stress, but stress is a root cause for many lifestyle factors and conditions that lead to stroke or could lead to stroke, such as, and I know you are really familiar with these, high blood pressure, and that doubles your risk of stroke, diabetes, heart disease, and this includes AFib. And AFib is a really silent disease. I mean, you're 5 times more likely to have a stroke if you have AFib. And you may not know that you have AFib. So please, when the next time you go in for a checkup, ask your doctor, sounds like I'm an advertisement, ask your doctor about AFib. Is it right for you? Probably not. Okay, cigarette smoking and also previous stroke. People who have had a stroke are more likely to have another stroke. Bad news for me. Again, stress is a root cause. What I did is I highlighted some of these risk factors that apply to me, because 19 months later, my doctors are still trying to figure out why I had a stroke. And so I'm doing that myself. Additional risk factors include, not surprisingly, physical inactivity, being overweight, having high cholesterol and high triglycerides. I had high triglycerides. Sickle cell disease, too much alcohol, a family history of stroke. I had it on both sides of my family, severe strokes, drug abuse, and I have a genetic condition called factor V Leiden, which is a blood clotting factor, which means my blood clots more readily than the average person. So genetic conditions can also contribute to stroke. Certain medications, being pregnant, and menopause. Okay, there are 3 kinds of strokes. I'm going to focus on one, but the first is hemorrhagic. This is I hope you can see in the back. This is the little example on the left. This is when a blood vessel bursts in your brain and you have what they call brain bleed. These are I think for people who die, that most of them probably had a hemorrhagic stroke. They're very, very damaging, and they are caused. A big risk factor is high blood pressure, because your blood pressure is so high, the blood vessel bursts. The next type is ischemic, and that's what I had. That's when you have a blood clot in your brain, a little piece of plaque or whatever gets lodged in an artery in your brain, and basically a stroke is it's when the blood supply gets cut off to a part of your brain, and therefore the oxygen, and then your cells die, your neurons die. And that's what a stroke is. You can see that most strokes are ischemic, almost 90%, and then the last category is called a transient ischemic attack, or a TIA, or a mini stroke. You've probably heard of these. That's a really small percentage, and there aren't any really lasting effects from a TIA. So if you're going to have one of those. Okay, this surprised me when I first read it. Your brain contains 100 billion neurons, and that's a lot. Your brain is very busy. It is absolutely the most incredible, amazing, it's not a machine, but certainly close to a machine. Nothing can come close to the brain's ability to do what it does. And every minute when an ischemic stroke is not treated, you lose 2 million neurons. That's every minute. 2 million neurons are lost, and 14 billion synapses die. And I was about 5.5 hours. So my stroke was really a bad stroke. It didn't have to be. It was, but it didn't have to be. That's what I really want you to remember, is strokes don't have to happen. Well, even if they happen, they don't have to be like mine was. Okay, nerve fibers, and these are the things that carry electrical impulses to and from your brain and your muscle and your organs. They also die. And Sheila can attest to the fact that nerve fibers repair very, very slowly. And so do, we're going to talk about the brain too, but one of the reasons that stroke recovery takes a long time is that nerve fibers are they just take a long time to repair. And you have to have them. If you don't have that connection, nothing's happening down here. I do want to mention that I was lucky. I have all my sensation. But again, nerve fibers carry signals from your muscles and organs to your brain as well, and those are your sensations. And mine weren't affected, so I was lucky that way. Okay, so a stroke can affect any area of your brain, and so depending on where a stroke, with the area that it affects, you can lose your ability to speak, to remember, and I just made these up. Calculate, anything that your brain can do, feel sensation, read, hear, see, move. That's my problem, is I have a hard time moving. And just do anything controlled by your brain. I'm just going to ask, who in here either knows someone who had a stroke or has had a stroke themselves? Okay, so most of you are familiar with stroke then. Okay. In the stroke community, we say time is brain, and you can see the reason why. If you're having a stroke, the faster you get to the hospital, the better. The acronym for stroke symptoms is FAST, and that is face droop. Oh, let me just, I always ignore this picture, but that's me with face droop. And it's not fun, because when you have face droop, even though I knew what to say, I had a really hard time talking, because you try talking, just try it. Try talking. It's really difficult. So face droop, if you see someone with face droop, ask them, to lift their arms or to lift something. Arm weakness, speech difficulty again, or T stands for time, call 911. Now, my primary symptom of a stroke was dizziness. So I woke up dizzy. I thought, oh my gosh, I'm having allergies, and that's why I went so many hours. I was just dizzy. And so I decided I would take it upon myself to change the acronym for today, and I'm calling it MADS. And M is for mouth droop, A is for arm weakness, D is for dizziness, and S is for speech difficulty. You all have little notepads there in front of you, and if you have any questions, just note them on the notepad, but please take the pad with you and remember the symptoms of stroke. If anyone you love or anybody in the street, you see any of these, take action, because it really is important. Okay, so on July 31st, 2017, I had my stroke, and believe me, it was a life-changing event. As I would do, even in the hospital, I started reading to learn more about stroke. And I started reading the two Norman Doidge books on the left, The Brain That Changes Itself and The Brain's Way of Healing. And these two books gave me hope that I could recover from my stroke. My Stroke of Insight is a very inspirational book. It's very small. It is a neuroscientist who had a hemorrhagic stroke. Took her 8 years to recover. She fully recovered. And if you just want some inspirational reading, that's a great one to read about stroke. But the best book that I read was called Stronger After Stroke by Peter Levine. And the subtitle of this is Your Roadmap to Recovery. And I knew I had hope that I could recover, but I wasn't sure what to do. And this book gave me so many ideas. And once I got started on it, I was off and running on my own road journey to recovery. And the first thing I learned was that the brain can recover from injury. One of the reasons the brain can recover is because we have neuroplastic brains. How many of you know what neuroplasticity is? Okay, a couple of you, yes. This is such an important concept, and it's only been in the last maybe 4 decades that neuroplasticity has been studied. Scientists used to believe that the brain, wouldn't change, could not change. But neuroplasticity means that the brain is changeable. It's plastic. It can change form. What it really means is it's the brain's ability to make new neural connections and to prune connections that aren't needed. And in your brain, you have your neurons, and they are firing. You see this neuron over here firing and across the synapse. And remember, every minute, 14 billion of these go away if you're having a stroke. But the synapse is really important because in the
Water might help.
Thank you. Getting a collection. Anything you do, like when I just did this, there were many neural. Anything else? Thank you. So anything that you do, your brain engages in it. Not just the neurons fire together in a pattern, and there are zillions of patterns. The more you do something, the more automatic that you can do it, like driving your car, walking up the steps. You don't think about doing it, but your neural networks are at work all the time. When you have a stroke and neural connections, those get messed up, and your neural networks aren't functioning. That's why you can't function. There's no connection. There's no information enabling your body to move or to speak or to do whatever. So neuroplasticity is so important because it is what enables you after a stroke to heal. Now, the thing about neuroplasticity, I just want to say it's for everyone, because it is for everyone. It is for everyone. Everybody uses neuroplasticity. My doctoral degree is in adult learning, and I never learned about neuroplasticity. You don't learn anything without neuroplasticity playing a part. And when you're young, our brains are really plastic, and we're learning all the time. But when you get older, you can still learn. As we all know, we're learning things all the time. That's neuroplasticity. Those are new neural networks being formed. Okay, neuroplasticity is supported by, and I would say for all of us, the first three, something called mass practice and repetition. And the way I like to think about that is if someone says to you, you should exercise for 30 minutes a day, 4 times a week. 30 minutes a day is mass practice, and 4 times a week is repetition over time. And so playing a piano, you want to learn to play the piano? Play the piano for 30 minutes a day for so many times a week. If you try to learn to play a piano playing, 5 minutes a day, once a week, you may learn, but you certainly won't learn as quickly. Neuroplasticity happens when you have, your brain is repeatedly trying to create those new neural connections. And I added, focus, concentration, that's another thing that's critical. Like when I'm trying to do something, I can tell the difference. When I'm trying to do something new or have my hand do something or my leg, I can tell the difference when I'm concentrating and when I'm not. And so focus, attention, concentration, critical. Critical for anything you want to learn. But certainly if you're recovering from a stroke, you almost have to do it, or it's just not going to happen. I added bilateral training because what I have discovered, this is so fascinating, is that, for me it's fascinating, that if I'm trying to do something with my left hand, which is my dominant hand, and I can't do it, if I do it with my right, it's much easier for my left to do it. So my brain, your brain, our brains are all, even though we have the 2 hemispheres, they do communicate with each other. So it's great. So sometimes, my right side or the left side of my brain can teach the right side of my brain, or at least help it. Pretty cool. I wanted to mention, as I thought about this, is neuroplasticity doesn't just occur with physical movements or learning to play the piano, learning to sing, learning to paint, whatever. I realized that it's everything. And people who are like continually happy, they're optimistic, they got really strong neural networks for happiness. And people who are continually negative, complaining, they've really done a good job of making, of creating strong neural networks for negativity. That can all be changed. But anything, neuroplasticity is just, it's a fascinating thing. And if you pay attention, especially if you pay attention and you can learn anything. Okay, one of the things that really fascinated me, look, I've only spoken for, we haven't even started yet, is learned non-use. And so I can't remember where I was when I read this, and I was like, oh no. Learn non-use, we know in the Forest Service says use it or lose it. And with stroke recovery, if you don't do something, your brain, because of neuroplasticity, will prune. It'll prune the connections. And so you won't be able to do it. Pretty soon, your connection's gone. Now this would be for anything. If you haven't done something in a long time and you go, geez, I haven't done, cartwheels in forever. Well, maybe physically you can do that, but something, your brain will prune the connections that it perceives you no longer need. And I call this a conditional paradox for stroke. I'm going to try to explain this. Let's see. Okay, here's my hand. At one point, I would say, and I named my body parts so I could talk with them. So this is pointy, by the way. Hello, hi pointy. And so I would say, pointy, move. Pointy, move. Pointy would not move. Okay. Pointy now moves. But the paradox of having a stroke is you can't move, but if you don't move, your brain is going to further prune those connections. You're not going to be able to move. So the challenge when you have a stroke is to move, and I have to speak about moving because that's my experience. But if you don't move, you won't move. But you can't move. So it's a really, really interesting journey because there are some things that you can do to fool your brain, and that's what you do at the very beginning is all kinds of techniques to fool your brain into thinking that the left or your affected side is moving. And then you stimulate neuroplasticity. This is probably not even a complete list of the stroke therapies that I have engaged in. And the ones that are in blue down the left-hand side and on the right-hand side there at the top are things that I still do now. I want to tell you that if you haven't seen me around the office lately, this is why. This is my full-time job. But and I put at the top sleep. We're going to talk about sleep, one of the most critical therapies, not just for people with stroke, but for all of us. And you probably never think about sleep as being a therapy, but indeed it is a therapy for your brain. So if you have any questions about any of these, jot it down. You can ask me later, or in Q&A, or.
Which ones are in blue? Because I can't tell which ones are in blue.
I'm sorry. These are all in blue, and down to there.
Okay.
And then that's not the order of importance by any stretch of the imagination, but that is just when I got to a point that I felt that the neuroplasticity had gotten to a point where I could move to a different therapy, I did. So, okay, here, I don't know if you can see this in the back, but it's just an example of some of the therapies that I've done. Number one was physical therapy. I'm going to try to go through these very quickly. I am in a sling or a harness. This was right after my stroke to help me to hold my weight so that I could still walk. Again, if you don't walk, if you don't use the leg, you're not going to. So this was one of those things that you do. Yeah, body being held up, little thing running. Of course my leg is going to move. So number two is laser therapy or light therapy. It's a little helmet, shoots laser into your brain. 3, 4, and 11. So 3 and beside it 4, and then below that 11. That is a clinical trial that I just completed at Emory University. And number 4, the person in the photo is Dr. Tricia Kazar. She's the PI. And what the study was aimed at trying to, what they're trying to figure out is how many sessions it takes of getting this electrical stimulation to this is a gait study, to the front of the leg and the back of the leg, and what is the minimum number of sessions needed to start to see improvement. And so number 11 is me on the treadmill with the electricity. We are electric beings, let me tell you. We don't do anything without electricity. Number 5 is transcranial electrical stimulation. It's, you put on this little thing and it shoots the electricity across the brain. Number 6 in the lower left is neuromuscular electrical stimulation, and this is for my deltoid to help my brain send signals to my deltoid, because right now my brain is really having a hard time with that. Number 7 is supplements. I take a lot of supplements. These are AM and PM. Most of them, or not all of them, maybe half of them are really supplements aimed at brain health, but general vitamins, vitamin B, ones that everybody would take. But anyway, I take them every morning and evening. 8 is a sauna. Research has shown that if you, here we go, mass practice, repetition, if you get into a sauna, I mean you, not me, but all of us, 20 to 30 minutes a day for 4 days a week, you are between 50 and 60% less likely to have a stroke. And saunas are just good for all kinds of things. This is an infrared sauna. This is at my house, and my wonderful husband put it in for me. And it's fairly new, so I'm really enjoying it. Number 9 is, I go to a gym before my stroke, I went to the Total Training Center for 15 years. That's, my trainer is Danny McCall, and I have to mention her because if it had not been for Danny, I don't know if I would even be standing here. She has done so much for me. The regular exercise, I went right back to the gym right after my stroke. I still go twice a week, and she has accompanied me to neurologist appointments in Atlanta, surgeons appointments. She's done everything. She does research, and so I would say this is one of the most critical things that I have done is to continue to exercise. Number 10 is a mirror box, and remember when I mentioned that you try to fool your brain, especially at the very beginning when nothing's moving? The mirror box was built by Tom Moe for me, and this, if you can see it, I'm using my feet. You're supposed to put it on a table, stick your affected hand in under the tent, and then what you can see my 2 feet. Looks like a right leg and foot and a left leg and foot. So you move the one that you can move, and you look at it, and your brain thinks you're moving the side that you can't move. And it fools your brain into thinking you're moving. And so that's a little way to stimulate neuroplasticity. The reason you see my feet and not my hands is that there is no way that I could take a picture with this hand. So number 12 is a therapy that I've just begun that I kind of figured out on my own, and that's art therapy. In the sense that I meant to bring some of them in. I started painting, and my neurologist said, you must only paint with your left hand. And so this is a pastel. It's the first pastel and charcoal that I did, and one of my doctors said, do that and use big movements, because when I'm doing the painting, I have to dabble, by the way. I can't really actually use my wrist. But anyway, so that's that. That's what I do. That's trying to get my wrist, my hand, and my arm to work. And number 13, I just want to include this because I'm so proud of this. This is my own personal invention based on the research. This is a TENS unit. And what I do, if you can see it, the little thing with the copper on it, I hold that in my mouth, and I put the copper on my tongue. The blue thing goes back here, and I turn that thing on, that TENS unit on, and it shoots electricity through my tongue to my brainstem and into my brain. And then, 'cause that's what people thought I was crazy, but did it work? Yes, it worked. I know. My neurologist in Emory, I told him, and he went, uh-huh. He didn't say don't do it. He wasn't going to say do it, though. Okay. How do you prevent strokes? Okay, this is what we want to know. All right, we talked about this earlier. There are many conditions that are related to stroke that you can control, and stress is at the root cause of many of these. Okay, Flint Rehab is it's a commercial outfit, but they have great information about stroke rehab. Lots of products, too, that they like to sell, but their products are good. They asked, are you quick-tempered, impatient? NI team, am I impatient? Okay. Aggressive or hostile? I'll say I'm not that, but I am impatient. If so, you have a higher risk of stroke. And according to WebMD, if you live with chronic long-term stress, you are 4 times more likely to have a stroke. Chronic long-term stress is really, really an important thing to pay attention to. So I wanted to know, because I thought, yeah, I think I was living with chronic long-term stress. I have the best job in the world. Why would I be under stress? The answer is you create the stress yourself, okay? And you have the ability to change that. So that was my question. So, of course, one of the ways I began to explore that was through reading. And this is just an example of some of the books that I've read. And again, we can I'm not going to explain all of these, but they had to do a lot with mind and brain, and then also with meditation, and well, that's pretty much the direction I headed into. So I found an easy approach to stress management, and it is mindfulness meditation. That's me, by the way. Mindfulness meditation. How many of you all are familiar with mindfulness meditation? Oh, good. Okay, mindfulness meditation, it's really, in its concept, pretty simple. It involves focusing your mind on the present moment. So like right now, if you've been sitting here thinking, about something that happened before you came in here, or what you need to do when you get out of here, argument you had last night, or whatever, you're not in the present moment. It's really, it's simple, but it's difficult, but it's staying in the present moment. And you do that, for a focused period of time in a practice. You can do it through breathing practice, mental imagery, awareness of body and mind, and relaxation. One of the most conservative of agencies, the Forest Service, has adopted mindfulness meditation as one of its toolbox, its wellness tools in its toolbox, and this is from RMRS. The Forest Service supports your use of your practice of mindfulness meditation. So, what can I say? And there's lots and lots of research that shows that mindfulness meditation helps to reduce stress, and then there's that chain reaction. So from my research, I learned that meditation and sleep occur under different brainwave frequencies than those that are experienced in everyday activities. And so I wanted to explore how then did brainwave activities affect stress or mitigate stress. We have 4 basic brainwave frequencies. This is important because we all have them, and you're going to be in one of these at some point from now until you get below delta there at the end. The first is beta, and you're in beta right now. And I'm going to guess that you all are going to tell you more about beta, but I'm going to guess you're in medium beta. But you can see the brainwave frequency there. It's pretty fast. The one on the right is alpha. Alpha is a really important brainwave. It is a waking, the first 2 on the top are waking brainwaves. We spend most of our time in beta, some time in alpha, and then theta and delta are both sleep brainwaves. Theta is dreaming sleep. It could be deep meditation if you're really good at meditating. And delta is deep, deep sleep that doesn't include dreaming. That's a good place to be because your brain is really recovering. The last 2, the dreaming sleep, or the theta and the delta that's the time when your brain can recover and does recover. It also reorganizes at that point. So, like if you get an insight, you know how people say, well, I was in the shower and I had this insight or whatever. Your brain is reorganizing while you sleep. But when you're in alpha, it can bring those reorganization, the thoughts, the creativity to the fore. So when you have insights, you're usually in theta. In alpha. Okay, beta brainwaves are further divided into 3 different levels. High beta is high stress. It's when you're angry, argumentative, you're feeling worry, anxiety, you anticipate in a negative way. You know this, I don't need to tell you more about that. You can definitely know, you know what high beta is. Now, long-term high beta is equal to chronic stress. Our bodies are not meant to be in high beta, but for very short periods of time. Let's say the kid runs out in front of you with a soccer ball. That's high beta, but that's a real positive use of high beta in your life. Or if you think, you're fearful for your life or whatever and you're responding, that's high beta. We need high beta, but we don't need very much of it. And when you're in it, most of the time, you're really doing yourself a disservice. Medium beta, or day-to-day activities, that's where I think you all are right now. Not over-relaxed or over-stressed. Problem solving, talking, civil discussion, etc., learning, that kind of thing. And then low beta, excuse me, is reading, relaxed conversation, creative work. And you can probably imagine yourself in each of these 3 beta levels. I mean, if you think about it, and if you think about it during the day, you can say, am I in high beta, medium, or low, and you'll know. So these waking brain waves, which are the beta and the alpha, I was wondering about their relationship with the autonomic nervous system, and I won't tell you how I got into that, but anyway, the autonomic nervous system is our automatic nervous system. We don't have control over it. There are 2 parts to it: sympathetic, which is in essence high beta, fight or flight, and parasympathetic. And that is essentially when you're in alpha. You're relaxed. That's your rest and restore state. It's a really good place. Alpha is a great place to be. Alpha waves calm and balance your autonomic nervous system. And when I wondered when I go to a mind-body therapist and she said, this will balance your autonomic nervous system. And I thought, why do I want to balance it? Wouldn't I want to be like, in alpha all the time, But you can't be, because you have to spend time in beta, or, you just be, well, I guess some people could stay in alpha all the time, but really, beta is important. What we want to do is give up some of that high beta and increase some of the alpha. So when we talk about balancing, it's really balancing, giving up some of the high beta and spending more time in this more relaxed state. That's what I just said. Okay, so when we trade more alpha for less beta, we are better able to, check this out, learn new information, including languages, etc., things that are totally novel to you, perform new or elaborate tasks, analyze complex situations. In other words, if you can spend more time in alpha, you're going to actually end up benefiting the time you spend in beta doing things that you want to be doing. And it's just because you're giving your body a break. So you get into alpha through meditation, relaxation, and just activities that support the sense of calm. So there's many, many ways you can do this. I mean, we all know that when we go on vacation and we are sitting by the ocean and we're relaxing, we know it. It feels really good. Now, there's a quick technique. This is the really good news. When I talk to people about meditation, they go, and I meditate now twice a day, and it has been great for me. I go to a weekly meditation group. It's fabulous, but I have found out that when I mention meditation, people just go, I don't have time for that. So what I have learned is there is a quick technique. It takes 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes, folks. That's all it takes to balance your autonomic nervous system. It's free. And this is kind of, it brings you into what they call cardiac coherence. And you can see the top would be beta. You can see those are recognizable brain waves from an earlier slide. Cardiac coherence brings your heart and your brain into similar brain waves. Slow, and you don't have to do it for very long, but it will put you into an alpha state, which will make a difference to you. You'll be able to tell it. These apps to bring you into cardiac coherence you can put them on your phone. You can download them. They're free apps. There's one for the iPhone called Cardio Zen, and my friend Adam and I looked at it this morning. It's so nice. It takes you right to the beach. And then the one I use, which is for Android, is called My Cardiac Coherence. There are many of them. When you go to your app store, you can try out a lot of them and pick the one that works best for you. If you are interested in meditation and you want to try it on your own, Headspace is a really popular meditation app, or Calm. And these are they're quick. We're talking just a few minutes. And then you can move on from there if you want to try more. But I highly recommend a cardiac coherence app because it's free. It only takes 5 minutes. And if you do it before you go to bed, 5 minutes right before you go to sleep, my guess is, I would almost guarantee that if you do this for a little bit of time, you are going to sleep better. It's going to make a huge difference because it puts you into alpha, which helps you get into theta, and theta is your dreaming sleep. So it's a kind of it's a stop between beta and theta, and so it helps you get there faster. If you're all stressed out and you try to lay down and go to sleep, you know your brain has to get from beta to theta through alpha. That's how it has to happen, and you're just helping it if you use this app. Now, if you have 3 more minutes before I take questions, I would like to do a little not an experiment, an experience. Are you all willing to try this? Okay. This is not, this photograph is one I took. This is Scotland. But you don't have to look at it. What I'd really like you to do is to close your eyes. I don't want you to think about even 5 minutes ago, yesterday, last night, tomorrow, 10 minutes from now. I want you to think about right now. I want you to close your eyes, and you're going to hear a sound that kind of sounds like ocean waves. And when you hear one, you breathe in, and then you hear it again, you're going to breathe out. In, out. And you can say in, out. You can say tide in, tide out. I don't care. Sunrise, sunset, anything you want. But that helps you by saying something like that. It helps you to focus on the breath instead of something else. And you don't want to focus on anything else. And we'll just do it for 3 minutes. I had it set up for 5, but I'll cut it off. So are you? Okay. Are you all ready? Okay. Close your eyes. See. Hang in there. Hold on. All right. Keep. that was an abrupt end. That was not even 3 minutes. And it knew it. Okay. I don't know how that was for you, but it was. Hold on, let me go. Hopefully it won't come back now. That is the end of the presentation. Let's see, I did take